So what the heck is a Bitcoin and why should I care about it? That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. You just bought a Bitcoin, right? It's just this weird orange coin that lives somewhere on the internet. There's your orange for you. And I just paid 70,000 United States dollars for this orange coin. What the heck is that? That's a lot of money for just this stupid orange coin that I know nothing about. What the heck did I actually buy? And you're telling me I bought this for $70,000, and you're telling me that someone's gonna buy this from me in the future for more than that? You actually gotta be yanking me. There's no shot. Well, the first thing is that Bitcoin is not a vehicle to acquire more dollars in the future, right? The goal with buying Bitcoin isn't to buy it at $70,000 and then sell it for $100,000. Oh God, this is really hard to draw on here, right? This isn't the goal of Bitcoin, right? The goal of Bitcoin was to create a better form of money. So what actually is money? So first, money is three things. The first thing it is a medium of exchange, right? What that means is, right, you have the coincidence of wants where, say, in a society, one person grows apples, one person grows bananas, and then a third guy grows pears, right? How does the guy with the bananas get pears if the guy who's selling the pears doesn't actually want bananas, right? So that's why we have a medium of exchange where you have this other good that is used simply to exchange value from one human to another. All right, so the medium of exchange aspect of Bitcoin is that you can send Bitcoin anywhere in the world without permission, right? You don't need any central party, any bank to send Bitcoin. The second attribute of money is to be a store of value. What that means is you expect your money to maintain its purchasing power, right? You get paid $1,000 a week. You expect that to retain its value, right? You expect to be able to buy roughly $1,000 worth of goods, whether you spend that money today or a year from now, right? You expect to maintain some sort of purchasing power. The third thing that money is a unit of account. And what that means is basically the money is a measuring stick of goods and services. How do we actually measure how much money these things are worth? Bitcoin was created not to be a vehicle to trade between dollars and hope to make a profit. Bitcoin was created specifically to be money. And, that might seem obvious at first, but when people think about Bitcoin, they just think about its price. When the most interesting thing about Bitcoin is its properties as money. And, Bitcoin is still relatively early in how many people use it, which can kind of distort some of these aspects, which I can talk about later. But Bitcoin was created to solve problems in all three of these categories with the current money system we use, which is a fiat currency, which is essentially government issued money that is not backed by anything real. It is only backed by the full faith and issuance of the government issuing that currency. Any great technology or product is created to solve a problem. So we have problems in all three of these aspects with our current monetary system, right? The medium of exchange aspect, right? There's so many middlemen when we make transactions. Everyone's taking a fee. Everyone's taking a cut. Our banking system is incredibly corrupt. Our banks don't even have all the money that they say they do with fractional reserve banking. And with the medium of exchange with fiat money as well, you have the issue of censorship, right? If your government doesn't like something that you say, a protest that you go to, they can shut down your bank account instantly. And that is going to be very tough to survive after that. And you have other issues with censorship as well with Bitcoin, right? It's a permissionless way to exchange value. You don't need a middleman. And especially if you run your own Bitcoin node or implementation of the Bitcoin software, you can do that like on your own home server. And then you especially don't even need permission from someone else's copy of the Bitcoin software. You can be fully sovereign and broadcast your own Bitcoin transactions to the network. Number 2, store of value. I think this is pretty obvious for everyone who saves in dollars, yen, Canadian dollars, whatever your fiat currency of your country is. We know that these currencies don't store their value well, right? It's hidden with inflation, right? Since it's somewhat gradual, it doesn't seem as bad. But when you look at prices, the price of things over a long time period, it's crazy. Like especially things like home prices, things like that. That's where the money fails as a store of value. A unit of account, again, when the money loses its value constantly over time, it's hard to have an accurate measuring stick of economic value, right? Is a home really worth, $400,000 for a median American home? The average home price was, $100-some thousand just at the beginning of the 2000s. So is the dollar really then an accurate measuring stick to measure the economic value of something, right? So you're measuring a house and you're using this ruler, right? And it says this is really hard to write on here. 1 inch. I'm just going to write 1 inch. And every year, the size of the ruler gets slashed by 2 to 3% or even higher, especially in times of heightened money printing. So the ruler still says 1 inch, but it's still getting smaller. So to measure the same home, you need more and more rulers. So everyone's like, oh my God, why is everything so expensive? Homes are getting so expensive. Like, look at this, right? It's so many more inches, right? But the ruler just keeps getting slashed, right? But it still says 1 inch, right? Like it's really that simple. We're measuring the same thing with a ruler that says the same unit. So it looks like, oh, the house is getting so much bigger. Wow, that's crazy. Like my house just like grew. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Bitcoin was a monetary system that was created to solve these 3 problems. Right? How does it do that? Well, it's a store of value because there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. No one can debase your Bitcoin, right? No government can just decide to print more Bitcoin and use that newly created money, that newly created debt to fund a war, right? Without your permission, right? The protocol and all the nodes in the Bitcoin network enforce this 21 million hard cap. And you might look at the current volatility of Bitcoin, right? You have a lot of those up and down moves in Bitcoin. So you say, how can Bitcoin be a good store of value? It just keeps going up and down so much. Well, my last video, I talked about this, so check that out if you're interested. But there's a difference between volatility and risk, right? Volatility is the price you pay for adopting this monetary network, right? At this point, we've learned that Bitcoin is not an orange coin that you buy and sell on the internet. It's a monetary network full of people participating in that network voluntarily. Volatility is the price you pay by transferring your economic energy from this monetary network to this one, right? Before most people even understand what this is, right? I challenge you, ask, right, like people in your family or close friends to explain Bitcoin to you, right? Just say like, what is Bitcoin? How does it work? The percentage of people that understand it is pretty low. This is horrible. This like looks crazy, all this chicken scratch everywhere, but you get my points, right? Volatility is the price you pay. Volatility is different than risk, right? To me, I see a very low risk transferring my stored energy from this system, right? The system where currency is created at zero cost to its issuer, right? It costs nearly nothing to create more dollars. They're created out of thin air. Our government issues debt and is $40 trillion in debt. It uses that newly created money and debt to do things I don't agree with, like war. So again, volatility is the price that I am comfortable paying in order to be early jumping ship from this monetary system to this one, right? The monetary system where no one can censor your transactions, where no one can print new units, right? Where I can send a transaction fully sovereignly from my own server, my own Bitcoin node, right? That's what I value. So I see a very low risk exchanging units of currency printed out of thin air for units of currency that no one can ever create more of from now until the end of time, right? There will never, ever, ever be more than 21 million Bitcoin. So does that make it risky, or does that make it volatile because it's still such a small asset class, right? To like actually understand how small Bitcoin is, right? Bitcoin is like $1.5 trillion asset right now. When you compare that to, let's say, like the bond market, right? Bitcoin's a $1.5 trillion asset. The bond market is a $300 trillion market. So if I just copy and paste this 150 times, right? I'm not actually going to do that, but you get the point, right? So yes, Bitcoin is volatile, but when Bitcoin is, 150 times smaller than the bond market, yeah, it's going to be subject to more crazy swings up and down when people move in and out of size from that market, right? That just makes sense. So just imagine 150 squares of these, and that's the bond market compared to the Bitcoin market, right? It's still small. That's a little bit of an explanation on what Bitcoin actually is and why you should care about it. Happy to go further into other topics. Just let me know if you have any questions. I'd be happy to get into it. And I'll see you in the next video. As always, together, let's work, save, and build a better future with Bitcoin.